You get rid of those passwords here, all of these here. All right, so I'm just going to open up Inventor Professional. Yes. I would say if you're going to download one on your home computer, I think I said just go ahead and do 2025 Inventor Professional. There's probably, I can't say I know right off the top of my head how many different Inventor programs there are. Like CAD has a bunch, right? And we got just the the run-of-the-mill CAD. We didn't get any fancier. So when you go to download one for your home, and I probably sent out an invite early this semester that invited you to grab those programs. Not that you needed that though. You can technically go in with your .edu email and grab those programs. And so there's a ton of different homework you could do on your own too, because you could go back to CAD and look at some of those other programs and download them while you have a student email. Take advantage of that time. And if you find that, you're able to get the work done that I assign pretty easily and you have extra time, then definitely try to come up with some other things to look at. You download programs that are available to you while you're a student. That's handy. I can't say I know off the top of my head how many different Inventor programs there are. I don't think there's as many like CAD, but it's Inventor Professional that we're looking for, Inventor Pro. I could jump over to Autodesk, but I don't think it's too hard to sort through and find that program. Maybe just look for a drop down that would help you find the previous version of it. I mean, I could bounce over and look. I'm not even signed in right now. So all I did is if you've opened up the one that's on the computer, it should be Inventor Pro 2025. And so I've got that open, yours may be really blank here. Mine, of course, is kind of like CAD. It just has a bunch of last used files that will show up here in the middle. And so it's nice to have, one program under your belt that Autodesk has wrote, because then you can kind of always use that as your frame of reference of like, oh, they're similar to CAD. They're laid out similar to CAD. And so Revit will be similar to CAD. And so we kind of have, Inventor's not too dissimilar to CAD. It's got some of the same like home menu. So right here, I'm just on like a home page. And I think when you open Inventor, it'll be similar to this. They may have a few like default files open. I'm not sure what you guys have, but it'll look different, slightly different than mine. And it's just a pretty blank ribbon menu. We've got a few things we can do here on the home menu. We've got our options tab here, which is kind of like is very similar to CAD's, where I can go through and do some customization here. Of course, it doesn't benefit us to do a lot of customization here because it gets wiped every night. But on your home computer, you can do some things. We didn't do a lot. We ran it pretty default from the application options in CAD. We ran it pretty well default, and we're going to do the same thing here. Like I'm not going to make any changes to what's already set up on default here, but there is. What are we looking at? Yeah, yeah. Um, and yours says what? Oh, it does. Oh, so there might be some things like I'm not going to worry about it yet. Go ahead and you don't have to make any changes, but mine does say Arial, which I think was default CAD as well. But yeah, don't worry about what yours is. And I might set mine to yours, or I don't know what I'll do. Mine remembers what I did last, but I don't remember changing that. But yeah, clearly I did. Yours is just a different font type, is what it is, huh? Because it just has a ton of different fonts. But yeah. Something. Yeah, so is there anything else I need to say? Probably not too much here. That's application options. I'm not going to make any changes. I'm not going to deal with a bunch of these things at this point here, these particular palettes here. Other than there's a tools and a collaborate palette is all I really have. Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna make us do a bunch of resetting right now. I'm okay if you guys just leaving it in default, especially for these first while. So yeah, we'll pay attention to it once we start wanting to draft and really look at our template. Maybe we'll make sure that we're using the right font and definitely the right font sizes specifically. So yeah. Oh yeah, your thought space maybe if you save your template. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to worry too much about it, but what else is on here? I guess let me see. We have three drop downs over here. Oh. by default. These are Inventor projects. So I'm not going to talk about this too much either, but we can write a pro we can kind of build a project and which is just going to be like a quick access to maybe a file structure on your computer where you're keeping like all of your drawings and all your parts and all your assemblies. Because when we're in 3D modeling now, we're going to be able to kind of build parts and put parts and pieces together, kind of like a puzzle, into an assembly. And then we'll put those assemblies and parts on drawings. And so we'll kind of have this like natural flow of work through a drawing to an assembly to a part. And so what it does is we get a pretty dense file structure when we're drawing here. We get a lot of different files, and and then a particular project, if it was a 50-page drawing assignment, would have a lot of parts, a lot of assemblies, and then we could actually build a project file and just like have a quick access right to where all those files are. So I don't have to worry. But that's kind of what I could build a project file and it would show up underneath here and I could choose it. And so we'll get into that maybe a little bit later. I would say that's kind of next level. First, we're just going to worry about just how to draw some simple parts. And so I can either open one that exists or I could create a new one. So I think on the home tab, which is what I'm on here, I'm on a home tab. There's a few things that are kind of backwards from CAD. I think the home tabs, I mean, we have a similar like quick access toolbar up top. Um, and then a similar like kind of dumbed down ribbon menu that CAD has in Inventor as well here. So we've got kind of a simple home tab ribbon menu. Um, when we open stuff, it usually showed up in CAD up at the top here when we had open drawings. We kind of had that little space between our ribbon menu and our drawing space. It's just at the bottom of our window here. So the one thing that's different about Inventor from CAD is that your drawings are going to open up on this little space down here on the very bottom. So instead of the top. So that's one weird thing about it, but it's very similar that you'll have a tab here for every drawing or part or assembly that you have open, like you would in CAD. It'll just be at the bottom of your menu. And always to get back to the home menu from whatever you have open in a model browser, there's always this little home tab, which is what I'm on down here actually. So I'm sure it's all programmable to make it more like CAD, but I'm not going to do that. One thing I like about just jumping into Inventor this semester is that we've already had like a break from CAD. So now hopefully you've forgotten everything about CAD. And now you can just jump into a new program, remember some things about it, but not try to make it do like what CAD does. Because it scrolls different. There's like some of your normal features that you're used to in CAD will be just backwards in Inventor, but I don't go through the process of changing them all back. I feel like for me it works pretty well. I just once I get into the model browser and start moving, you'll see. But I don't worry about it too much trying to make it do like CAD does because then you'll always be trying to reformat it, reset it up to be like what you're used to. I tend to just be like once I get immersed in Inventor, I just get used to it. And then when I go back to CAD, it's all clumsy again for me for a minute until I get immersed in it, and then I get my wheels back and how to navigate through it. You'll see what I mean, though. Some students have taken the time to like try to make the scrolling go the same way as CAD and all that, and I'm just kind of like, nah, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to get once I immerse myself into it, whether it's Revit, CAD, Inventor, or any other program, I feel like I get it again. And yeah, yeah, for me, so what you see me is I'm just kind of like, well, I just get used to it and I start to use it. If that doesn't work for you, always in your life later or even now, you could start to like learn how to like go to the application settings and set everything to where how you want it to be. Like I get that too, because a lot of video gamers or whatever will want to have their settings their way. And they do feel like it's value added to go through the application options and set it all up so it's how they want it. I think I think that's great when you get, yeah, especially when you get more experience and you get like, this is how I want this to do. And so I always want it to be this. And then you can totally, yes, on your computer at home, you can totally set it up that way. And then if you're quick with it, you could do it here too. But that's the reason why I avoid it is because of the wiping of these computers. And I'm just going to run it in default. And I'm not going to worry about trying to be, too customized here. But that doesn't mean that in your professional career that you may choose to be pretty particular how you customize your settings. So just because I don't here doesn't mean you don't have to later in your career. So because I feel like sometimes the quicker drafters out there probably is because they've set up a lot of customized settings that speed up their workflow. And so don't discredit that. Just because I don't do it here doesn't mean it's not a valuable thing to speed up your workflow. But yeah, it just takes. I feel like it just takes some uh, experience with the program and then knowing what you want to do and learning what the redundant tasks are that you do a lot and how you could speed those up. That's where somebody, and that's why gamers get pretty particular on how their user settings are, right? Because that makes them pretty efficient in a game. It's the same way here. You can be pretty efficient in the program once you know what you want it to do and you know what your repetitive functionality is. So anyway, at this point, we don't know that yet. So it's okay to just start from a clean slate or a blank palette for me is what I think. Yeah, just start from ground zero, right? Default mode. Yeah. But so what we have options here is to open up some new things here. And so on the home tab is where you're really going to navigate to something you have or something that you need to open. And in our case, we would want to start new. So I'm just going to go to this new drop down tab. There is a quick access, either a part, an assembly, or a drawing, or a presentation, like ready to go. I tend to not use these because I don't know how they're formatted. I think they might be the last one that you used, potentially, but I always go to browse templates here, and then you get the full display of what you have options to open here. So if I go to browse templates here, it's kind of like CAD in a way. I'm not going to go to the model space until I kind of decide what I'm going to do in model space. And so what you have is these options. This might not be open for you. It might just look like this. Like and these should be like if you download this on your home computer, it should already download some of these default kind of shells, whether they're parts or assemblies or drawings. And we also already have anytime you download this program, I think you'll get the inches and metric versions of this. So if I expand this out here, here's English and here's metric and then mold design, which I've never used any of the mold design templates actually. But we're going to use English primarily. I don't think there's a single metric assignment for the first couple of weeks. But if I click on English, what I have here is these are now definitely in inch units, and so I see them in inch units. The first parts that you can create or is a part, I guess. So this goes to talk about like well, what are my file types in Inventor? If you remember in CAD, we have our I don't know. I've already purged this from my memory, right? But at the end of the semester, we were doing some DXF file creation for laser cutting. Those are DXF files. But before that, we were just remind me. My mind is so blank. What were our drawing files called? And maybe it should be a test for you guys. DWGs, right? Yes, DWGs are our drawing files, and then our a DWT as a template file, and then we just had our normal like model file as DWG, right? Yeah, because it has a picture and yeah, that's good. So DWTs, and then we always created DWGs. So and then we learned, and of course now I've forgotten that file structure, just like that. I've already immersed myself for a week in Inventor, so so now we just kind of have like a part. So now what these are to me, these are different file types for sure. So in this first one that's called a part, is going to be a different file type. It is going to be a .ipt, an Inventor part file is a .ipt. And so it doesn't really have a drawing with it necessarily. It just kind of is it's just an IPT part file. And it can be ready to go, for 3D printing or whatever, but it's just like this little standalone part file. It has sketches, it has extrusions. It's kind of like what we did in 3D CAD. It's just like, whatever I want to draw, I have this little part that I've created. It's 3D part. Once I have multiple of those, I can put them together in an assembly, which is a .iam file. So these ones are really made for when I have multiple parts, and they show that, like blocks going together, like I have multiple parts coming together as an assembly. That's a .iam file. And so it's just an Inventor assembly file. And it would be made up of multiple part files. And then we have a .idw file, which is where my drawing is. And so an IDW, an IAM, and an IPT are going to be the file structures that we get pretty familiar with here. From those, we can actually create CAD files and stuff too. Like we're not limited in just these file types because, Autodesk and Inventor and CAD have some interoperability. I can actually like export some of our IDW drawing files as a DWG file for CAD. So these programs do work in and out of each other pretty good, at least with whatever's capable in that other program, right? So obviously I can't just bring something in from CAD and make it just go into 3D land. I'd have to like develop it out, but I could bring in a sketch from CAD and work from it. So there is a lot of collaboration between the two that can happen. And Revit's the same way. You could bring in CAD files and build from CAD files in Revit as well. So they're definitely related. they're somewhat compatible. Um, what was I going to say? We're going to start with a lot of just IPT part files. And then, so you have two different options here. You have either a sheet metal part or a standard part. We won't do sheet metal parts for just a couple of weeks, but so I'll be using a standard part file to start with. And it's just a nice entry level into this. Um, yeah, so I would choose like a standard part here. And then we don't need to worry about presentation yet. We'll get into that one later too. So, um, so if I open up this one, sometimes it'll give an image or a display of this. So I'm just going to say, oh, I'm going to select that one and say create. And then it's actually going to take me into the model browser space, which is going to be light blue instead of this dark black background. You can totally customize that. Some people prefer to have the dark background like CAD. I've always just used default, this lighter type, but they have a light and a dark theme. And so maybe we'll explore that in a bit, but it's definitely under the application options, which now that I'm in here, just like CAD in a lot of ways, the ribbon menu is more robust. It's a modeling atmosphere here with a model space with tabs, ribbon menus, quick access toolbar, Um, very similar to I don't know if you guys have all of these, but I do believe they are also like loadable, just like they were in CAD, where the thing, I have all these selected that are showing up on my quick access toolbar. You may not have all these selected, but that's why I've got the imagery that I have up there. We've got our tabs with similar to CAD that way. Some of the tabs look very similar to CAD. In some ways, they look different. They definitely look similar to like 3D CAD, and that's what we were running at the end of last semester for the most part. So similar to 3D CAD. The difference would be here. I think it already pre-populates this. I always put my properties panel up in Inventor, or sorry, in CAD right here. In Inventor, I've got this model tab. You guys have this up on your side too? Yeah, this thing is movable, kind of like a properties panel as well, but I usually dock this thing to one of my sides here for sure. So wherever I can dock it, I guess. I think it should dock for me. Oh, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I thought I could just dock this thing. Yeah, there it goes. This is a model browser though, so it's just kind of like I feel like it's just it's like a history tracker for whatever we're going to build. And our textbook that we're going to jump into doesn't explain the model browser really well, but to me it's just something that is I jump into and get familiar with it right away because it has all of the information that I might need to go back and edit or change things. Like it's just going to keep a history of my model and what I'm doing to my model, and so that and CAD doesn't have that with 3D CAD, but Inventor does. It kind of keeps this model history, makes it much more editable, modifiable, and it's going to keep track of every sketch I do, every extrusion I do, and it's going to build this whole like tree, this model browser tree over here that I'm able to go back and change and explore things. And so to me, I jump into like this right away because it's going to become a part history essentially. And so it shows that it's a part file. It shows there's model states, and I can actually change model states. That's definitely going to be, I feel like next level manipulation. We don't have to worry about that for several weeks. What the difference of model states would be. Uh, I have a view, which I guess has already some pre-programmed like views. I would say I haven't used this a lot. This one is expandable from the origin here. This one I do always open. So I would say for me on my model browser, I'm not going to expand these first two model states and view out much here. I think these are going to be like next level. But for me, I am in the habit of always expanding my origin tab and getting these things to show up. So what we have here is we are on an X and Y plane, just like we would be in CAD. We have we have our little view cube over here, which we're on a front view currently. So this is going to be like a front view. So if I'm already thinking like a drafter, sometimes when I draw things, I maybe already want to consider what is my front view and how I want to start designing this. So I feel like I'm going to pay attention to that more in this program than I even did in CAD. Uh, but it's like 3D CAD in a way that if I choose the wrong orientation, it's not too hard to flip it around on my drawing and actually decide what is my front view. I kind of have that control once I'm putting stuff on a drawing, just like I did in 3D CAD and I went to that base view, it's very similar. The operability of Inventor is a lot like 3D CAD. So, but what I do like to have is it's just like the model space of CAD that it's as big as the universe here, right? I mean, and I have like no bearing here whatsoever. I just have this blue screen. Yes, I do have a UCS down here that shows X, Y, and Z. I can kind of navigate myself here. I use my 3D mouse in this environment to navigate mostly. So my left hand is almost primarily on my 3D mouse here, and you guys have access to that here. But we'll go over both ways I can do this, kind of like 3D CAD. There are some keyboard shortcuts I can use, and the guy that does the videos that we'll watch, that you'll watch some of them. He does not have a 3D mouse, so he's usually using over here. He's using the Orbit like quick access toolbar over here to like rotate his object around. And there's a keyboard, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But one thing that's confusing for me, some versions of CAD or Inventor will pre-populate the origin point so I can see where the origin point is here. It's not necessarily down here where this shows. This is just showing me what plane I'm kind of looking at, the YX plane. But I like to turn on these. So if I expand my origin menu over on my model browser tree, and what's showing up are the planes that exist here. And where they all intersect is going to be the origin point of this. Like it's going to be the 000 point in space. I do like to keep track of it here in Inventor. And I always kept track of it in CAD too. I just never like drew specifically from the origin point. Like I never like constrained my stuff to be on the origin point necessarily. In CAD, you always saw me just kind of draw in the positive quadrant. Well, here I do like utilize the origin point here more than I did in CAD. So you will see me. It's because I want to constrain my sketches, and we'll explore what that means and why there's the difference in it. But so I am going to like always be aware of where the origin point is in Inventor, it seems like. And so for me, one visual thing is I can turn on these planes. These are grayed out in the model browser. That just means they're not showing. But if you like select anything over here in the model browser and then right click it, it just brings up like a quick access to what you could do with this here. And one of them is here, I can turn on the visibility. So yes, from here, I could actually start a new sketch on that plane. I could, measure on that plane, but I could auto resize it, which is actually automatically always resizing for me. That's already checked. But what I want to turn on here is the visibility. And then it becomes like this visible plane here in my model space. This is the YZ plane. It's just the first one in my list that I turned on. I actually get in the habit of turning all of these on when I enter my model space first. I think I could go to the application settings and toggle this on to show models, to show the 3D planes. I think 2025, for whatever reason, their default, they chose not to have these automatically turned on, but some programs, some of the previous ones, they did have them automatically turned on. And I know I can toggle them on, but I'm just still going to run in default where when I first come in, they probably are not going to be turned on, and I'm going to turn them on. All it does is for me, it gives me a sense of bearing in model space, where my YX plane is, where my other planes are. Here's YZ. And so I feel like I have a sense of bearing in model space when I'm looking at my three planes that I could choose to draw from. So really, I have these options of like, if I know how my part needs to look on my drawing, should I strategically choose to draw the front view first and then extrude? Should I strategically choose to draw the top view first and then extrude and make it? You have all these options. It doesn't really matter in a lot of ways, but it might matter down the road that I kind of have that pre-planned when I'm looking at a part to draw, and I know I know which view I want to be my front view. Then I can just kind of like start on that plane, and you'll see every object we draw is probably going to start on the XY plane as the front view, and kind of draw like from front view, like dedicated from front view. And it's just because we know that from last semester. Our front view is that stable part position. It's got the most amount of detail, the least amount of hidden features. It's got the longest width. So it kind of, we try to choose that and classify that view so that we know, how to even start my object drawing. And especially when we're like, at first, we're just going to draw like one-off objects like we did in CAD. And so they really don't have a relationship to another part to consider. So it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to probably start them on, pick an X view or an XY plane for my front view and start drawing a sketch. But I like to turn these on so I have a sense of bearing. If I highlight over these are just the axes or the axes that are associated with these planes. This is the x-axis that passes through the origin point. Here's the y-axis that passes through the origin point. And here's the z-axis that passes through the origin point. And so you can turn these on as well. I tend to not turn these on, but I do use these sometimes to constrain stuff too, because they are existing geometry in every part. It already has these planes established. It already has these axes established. And it has the center point, which is the origin point 0, 0, 0. So cool. So those are like specific features that he doesn't explain well in his first video, but I go right to it and say, hey, I need to be aware of this model browser right off the get-go. And I like to be aware of what those planes are and what I have, essentially to start a sketch, we're going to draw in 2D and then go immediately to 3D, right? So we're going to draw 2D sketches and then extrude them into a 3D shape. Then we're going, and then once we have a 3D shape, we have different faces and features that we can choose to draw to. So we just kind of like start on a plane, and then sometimes when we build out a part, we might actually just use its surface features to draw from. And so we'll see how that goes once we start drawing. But this is really just an overview for the first few minutes that I wanted to show that the model browser is new. We're going to really pay attention to it. The ribbon menu is very similar to CAD in a way. If I want to start like to actually draw like I would in CAD, I need to pick a plane to start with. So it always like I like that the first model browser 3D model tab, the first thing on the far left is to start a 2D sketch. Of course, we can do 3D sketches as well, but we're going to start with 2D sketches. In order to start a 2D sketch, it's always going to say, where do you want to start it? It looks like this. My cursor looks like a little, a piece of paper and a pencil. And then, so you can choose to start here and then pick a plane to start with. And then if you do that, it's going to go into this environment where it actually puts you like it puts you in a 2D environment on that sketch plane. So I'm on the front view now, and I'm actually on that plane. You can still like if I move my browser here, you can see that I can still move like I'm in 3D, but it's going to bind my drawing to be on this XY plane that I chose to draw on. So if I go back to the front view and start sketching, you can see that it moved me to the next tab on my ribbon menu automatically. Like when I went into a sketch, it pushed me over to the sketch tab, where now I have access to commands that are very similar to CAD. I can draw lines, circles, arcs in all kinds of ways, rectangles and other geometry, a little more expanded menu of different shapes beyond just rectangle and polygon. I have slots, and so that's cool. I have fillet. Yeah, I have some new stuff like project geometry is a new thing that's going to be super handy to use it. But I have my modify commands, and I have some patterning commands, which are like arrays. And then I have constraints right immediately available. Like I made us do that. I made us do that seal plate, and we kind of learned about constraints in CAD. Well, these same symbols show up in Inventor right here, and so uh, this should be a little bit familiar to us. This constraints tab and how we constrain things are very similar to 3D CAD. Or actually, that was just doing in 2D CAD when we did the seal plate, and we learned how to constrain things by their endpoints, by their midpoints, dimensionally constrain, and geometrically constrain. So we'll use that a lot. We won't use insert too much, and we won't use a lot of formatting tab here, but we will use some. And then once I'm done sketching a drawing or a 2D sketch, I hit finish, and then I go back into the 3D environment where then I can choose to go do like 3D commands to a sketch. So I'll finish this, even though I didn't do anything in here. If I just hit finish, it really keeps track that I did do something, and it built out something in my model browser here that is called Sketch 1. So even though all I did was go into that thing and then I just hit finish and didn't do anything, it actually kept track of that as like a sketch that I have nothing in. But I can go back in and edit this. So this thing just populated on my tab, and it just called it Sketch 1 because it's going to give everything a unique name. Whether you choose to name it or not, it's going to build a unique name for you. And if I deleted this one and started a new sketch, it would remember that I already did a sketch 1 and it would call it Sketch 2. So it's a smart program. It's going to help you like not too much, there's going to be everything you do is going to be unique and not be like redundant functions on, I guess, your model browser is going to be totally unique features, and it's going to help you like not create a conflict of a file naming essentially, because it kind of functions like a file where it has to have a unique name, can't have the same name as something else. So, all right. And then it's just like how I turned these on. If I go into this sketch here now and click on it and right click, there's a lot of things I can do to here. I can turn off the visibility if there was something that I drew and I didn't want to see it. I can turn it on and off, just like I can turn on and off the planes. And I can get back in here and edit sketch too. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to cover today is just get this thing opened up and start looking at it. We're going to start drawing with it right first thing tomorrow. And you're welcome to get in Canvas and start watching some of those videos. He has an introduction to the user interface that it's in the resources for week one section. Um, so he's got like two or three videos where he just does an introduction, kind of goes over what I've done. I've covered a few different things than he does, but the model browser is really important to me to not even, not to delay exploring it, but to jump into it right away. So anyway, yeah, let's just call it good, but feel free to look ahead and then we'll start drawing some stuff tomorrow. Yeah, go ahead and yeah. And I think that's this is a good place for me to stop. So I'll stop sharing and stop.